Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling something I think we've all pondered at one point or another, how to speak English more confidently.
Right.
We've got this really popular online guide that's just chock full of tips.
Okay.
And our mission is to pull out the nuggets that'll help you the most, whether you're prepping for a big speech,
Right.
brushing up on your skills, or just love learning new things.
Yeah.
What's interesting is this guide is actually a video
All right.
aimed at people learning English as a second language. But I think even native speakers can find some surprising gems in these types of resources. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Sometimes it takes stepping outside of our familiar framework to gain fresh insights.
Yeah.
Even revisiting basic principles can be illuminating.
Okay, let's unpack this first tip that really jumped out at me. Thinking in English.
Okay.
The guide really hammers this home as essential for fluency.
Yeah.
I've heard this advice before, but I'm curious, what's the science behind it? Why is it so effective to ditch that mental translation process?
It all boils down to how our brains are wired.
Okay.
When you translate from your native language, you're essentially adding an extra step, slowing down your speech
Right.
and hindering fluency.
Yeah.
But when you start thinking directly in English, you're rewiring your brain to process the language more efficiently.
Okay.
There's this fascinating concept called neuroplasticity,
Yeah.
which means our brains are constantly adapting and forming new connections.
Yeah.
By consistently thinking in English, you're strengthening those neural pathways specific to the language.
So it's like building a mental superhighway for English,
Exactly.
making those thoughts flow faster and smoother.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
The guide lays out some concrete steps for actually doing this, right?
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to say think in English, but how do we actually make that happen?
Right. It can seem a bit daunting at first, but the key is to start small.
Okay.
The guide suggests beginning with simple thoughts. Think about your daily routines, your to-do list, or even what you want to eat. Instead of thinking, I need to go to the store,
Right.
try thinking, I need to go to the supermarket. It's a subtle shift, but it starts training your brain to operate in English.
I like that, starting with those little everyday things.
Yeah,
It's less intimidating than trying to compose a whole essay in my head.
right.
You know, I actually tried this thinking in English thing when I was learning Spanish.
Oh, cool.
I would narrate my actions in my head, like
Yeah.
I'm brushing my teeth, I'm making coffee. It did feel a bit silly at first,
Sure.
but I think it actually helped.
That's exactly the kind of technique the guide recommends. It might feel awkward initially, but it's a powerful way to solidify those mental connections.
Yeah.
And you can gradually increase the complexity.
Okay.
Start by narrating simple actions, then move on to describing your surroundings, or even having imaginary conversations in English.
Oh, wow.
The guide also suggests journaling in English.
Oh, interesting.
It's a great way to practice expressing your thoughts and solidifying your grasp of the language.
Great.
You know, it doesn't even have to be a traditional diary. You could jot down notes about your day, write a to-do list, or even just free write whatever comes to mind.
So essentially, we're creating opportunities to use English in our minds throughout the day.
Yes,
And the more we do that,
Yeah.
the more natural and automatic it becomes.
exactly.
So for you listening, think about a task you do frequently. Maybe it's cooking dinner or commuting to work. Challenge yourself to think it through in English.
Right.
See what happens. But thinking is just the first step, right?
Yeah.
How do we actually get comfortable with speaking English confidently?
That's a great question, and it leads us to our next tip. Practice, practice, practice.
Okay.
It might sound cliche,
Yeah.
but this guide offers some clever hacks for making practice a part of your daily routine.
See, that's what I was hoping for. Because practice makes perfect is easy to say. But finding those practical, everyday ways to practice is key.
Right.
So what are some of the guides suggest?
Well, one idea is to simply talk to yourself in English. Embrace that inner monologue out loud. Describe what you're doing.
Oh, okay.
Express your thoughts and opinions, anything that comes to mind.
Yeah.
It might feel a bit strange at first,
Sure.
but remember, no one's listening. It's a judgment-free zone where you can experiment and get comfortable with the rhythm and flow of the language.
See, I'm actually a big fan of talking to myself.
Yeah.
My roommate might think I'm crazy,
Yeah.
but it helps me process my thoughts.
Sure.
And doing it in English, that's like a secret weapon for language learning.
Yeah.
But I know some people might be a bit hesitant to talk to themselves out loud.
Yeah.
Are there any other ways to get that speaking practice?
Of course. The guide suggests exploring language exchange apps or websites.
Right.
You can connect with native English speakers who are learning your language,
Right.
and you can practice with each other.
Yeah.
It's a great way to get real-world conversational experience.
I've heard of those apps.
Yeah.
And they sound like such a cool way to connect with people from different cultures.
Absolutely.
It's like a win-win. You get to practice your English, and you learn about another language and culture.
Exactly.
The guide also mentions joining groups.
Exactly. Think about your interests and hobbies.
Okay.
Are there any English-speaking groups or clubs in your area that you could join? It could be a book club, a hiking group, or anything that sparks your passion.
Oh, nice.
It's a fantastic way to immerse yourself in the language and culture while doing something you enjoy.
Right.
And it ties into something the guide emphasizes.
Okay.
The importance of communication over perfection. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah.
They're valuable learning opportunities.
Right.
The goal is to express yourself, engage in real conversations, and allow yourself to stumble and learn along the way.
I think that's such a crucial point.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get so hung up on being perfect that we're afraid to even open our mouths. But the truth is, fluency comes from actually using the language, mistakes and all.
Absolutely.
So for you listening, think about which of these methods resonates with you. Maybe you're a social butterfly who'd thrive in a group setting.
Yeah.
Or maybe you prefer the one-on-one connection of a language exchange app.
Right.
The key is to find what works best for your personality and schedule.
Exactly.
Okay, now, this next tip really resonates with me.
Okay.
It's all about listening and imitating.
Gotcha.
I've always found that observing how native speakers use the language is incredibly helpful.
What's so effective about this approach is that it allows you to absorb the nuances of natural English speech. It's about going beyond textbooks and grammar rules and immersing yourself in the authentic sounds of the language.
And this guide gets specific with some techniques, right? Like, how do we actually put this listen and imitate into practice?
One technique the guide highlights is mimicking.
Okay.
Choose an English language movie, show, or even a YouTube video that interests you. Pay attention to how the speakers pronounce words, their intonation, their rhythm. Try to imitate them. It's like an acting exercise for language learning.
Oh, fun.
And don't be afraid to exaggerate a little at first.
Right.
It helps to really get those sounds ingrained in your mind.
That's so fun. I love the idea of turning language learning into a bit of a performance.
Yeah.
And it's a great excuse to watch more movies and TV shows.
Yeah.
The guide also suggests something called shadowing, right?
Exactly. Shadowing involves listening to a sentence or phrase and then immediately repeating it.
Gotcha.
Trying to match the speaker's intonation and pace as closely as possible.
Right.
It's a fantastic way to fine-tune your pronunciation and develop a more natural flow.
Okay.
You can use the same materials you use for mimicking movies, shows, podcasts, anything with spoken English.
So it's like you're becoming the speaker's shadow, echoing their every word.
Exactly.
I can see how that would be really helpful for getting those sounds and rhythms, right? And for all you music lovers out there, the guide also suggests singing along to English songs. It's a fun and engaging way to improve your pronunciation and vocabulary.
All of these techniques, mimicking, shadowing, singing along, they tap into the science of language acquisition.
Oh, interesting.
When we listen to and imitate native speakers, we're training our brains to recognize and reproduce the sounds of English more effectively.
So think about a favorite English language show or song and give these methods a try.
Yeah.
I'm ready to queue up my playlist right now.
Okay, moving on to vocabulary. I think we can all agree that expanding our vocabulary can sometimes feel like a chore.
Right.
But it's obviously crucial for speaking English confidently.
Of course.
So what does the guide have to say about making this process more engaging?
It's easy to get bogged down in memorizing lists of words.
Yeah.
But the key is to make it engaging and relevant to your interests.
Right. Yeah.
The guide emphasizes daily learning.
Okay.
Start small. Maybe aim for learning 5 new words or phrases each day.
And then try using them in sentences. It's a simple but powerful way to build your vocabulary organically.
So it's about consistency rather than cramming 5 words a day. Seems manageable.
Yeah.
What I struggle with is actually remembering those words. Do you have any tips for that?
Absolutely. The guide highlights the importance of learning in context,
Okay.
which means encountering words naturally within sentences and paragraphs.
Yeah.
This helps us grasp their nuances and understand how to use them effectively.
Right.
Reading English books, articles, or blogs on topics you love is a fantastic way to do this.
Right, because when you see a word used in a real-world setting,
Yeah.
it just clicks.
Yeah.
And the more you read, the more you'll encounter those words again,
Right.
which reinforces your memory.
Yeah.
They also recommend using flashcards or apps like Anki, right?
Yes. Flashcards and spaced repetition apps can be super helpful for solidifying those new words in your memory.
Yeah.
They use algorithms to show you words just as you're about to forget them,
Oh, well.
which helps to really cement them in your long-term memory.
Interesting.
And when it comes to vocabulary, don't be afraid to get creative.
Right.
If your interests lie in business, technology, or any other field, tailor your learning to those areas.
Right.
It will make the process more engaging and provide you with vocabulary that's directly relevant to your goals.
I love how personalized that is.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off trying to learn everything at once.
Right.
And allows you to focus on what truly matters to you.
Exactly.
Speaking of taking the pressure off.
Our final tip from the guide is all about mindset,
Yeah.
staying positive, and keeping up the practice.
Both of us absolutely agree that this is the most crucial tip of all.
Yeah.
It's easy to get discouraged when learning a language.
Right.
But this guide beautifully emphasizes the importance of self-compassion and celebrating small wins.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that fluency is a journey, not a destination. There will be setbacks along the way,
Right.
but it's about persistence and enjoying the process.
Yeah.
Celebrate those moments when you successfully navigate a conversation,
Yeah.
grasp a challenging word, or express yourself with newfound clarity.
You know, sometimes I get so caught up in what I haven't mastered yet that I forget to acknowledge how far I've come.
Right.
It's like I need to give myself permission to celebrate those small victories.
Absolutely. And the guide encourages setting realistic goals and tracking your progress.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great way to stay motivated and see how far you've come.
Right.
Maybe you set a goal to learn a certain number of new words each week,
Right.
or to have a short conversation with a native English speaker.
Okay.
Whatever your goals are, make them achievable and celebrate each milestone along the way.
That's a great reminder.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we set these huge, daunting goals,
Right.
and then we get discouraged when we don't achieve them overnight.
Yeah,
But it's those small, consistent steps that ultimately lead to fluency.
exactly.
So for you listening, think about what truly motivates you to learn English.
Mm-hmm.
What are your goals? And how can you create a supportive environment that fosters growth and confidence?
Remember, every word you learn,
Mm-hmm.
every sentence you speak, every interaction you have, it all contributes to your journey towards fluency.
Awesome. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
and I'm feeling super inspired by these tips.
Yeah,
They're not only practical, but also really encouraging. You know,
absolutely.
it's all about embracing the process, being kind to ourselves, and celebrating those small wins along the way.
Right.
So if you're out there feeling a bit hesitant about your spoken English, remember these tips and keep practicing. You've got this.
I agree.
And who knows, maybe the next time we chat, you'll
Yeah.
be sharing your own success story with us.
I'd love to hear it.
That's it for part 1 of our deep dive into speaking English confidently. Join us after the break for part 2, where we'll be tackling a thought-provoking question inspired by this very guide. We'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Welcome back. Before we jump into that thought-provoking question, we were diving deep into some fantastic tips for speaking English more confidently.
Right.
And you know me, I'm all about making sure those key takeaways stick. So a quick recap for you before we move on.
Always a good idea. Repetition is key for solidifying those new concepts.
Exactly. So tip number 1, what was it again?
Oh, yeah.
Think in English. Ditch that mental translation and let those English thoughts flow freely.
Number 2, practice speaking regularly.
Yep.
Create those opportunities to actually use the language. Embrace those real-world interactions, whether it's talking to yourself using a language exchange app
Right.
or joining an English-speaking group.
Number 3, listen and imitate those native speakers.
Yes.
Tune into the natural rhythms and sounds of English. Mimic, shadow, sing along, whatever works for you.
Number 4, expand your vocabulary.
Right.
Make it fun, make it relevant to your interests.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to use those new words in real-life situations.
And last but certainly not least, number 5, stay positive and keep practicing. Celebrate those wins, big and small. And remember that fluency is a journey, not a destination.
Beautifully said. Now, are you ready for that thought-provoking question I promised you?
Hit me with it. I'm all ears.
Right, here it is. Think about the core principles behind these language learning tips.
Okay.
We talked about thinking directly in the language,
Mhm.
practicing consistently, immersing yourself in the sounds,
Hmm.
expanding your knowledge base, and maintaining a positive mindset.
Mm-hmm.
These are powerful concepts that extend far beyond just language learning, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's like a blueprint for mastering any skill or area of knowledge.
Exactly.
Whether you're learning a new musical instrument, delving into a new field of study, or
Yeah.
developing a new professional skill,
But
these principles can be applied. It's amazing how interconnected things are, right?
precisely. It's about breaking down complex goals into manageable steps,
Yeah.
seeking out opportunities for practice and application,
Right.
and cultivating a growth mindset that embraces challenges as opportunities for learning.
I see.
It's about recognizing that mastery takes time and effort,
Mm-hmm.
and that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
So empowering. It means that the same strategies we use to learn a language can be applied to virtually any area of our lives where we want to grow and improve.
Exactly.
You know, it reminds me of when I was learning to play the piano.
Oh, yeah.
At first, it felt so overwhelming,
Yeah.
all those notes and chords.
Right?
But my teacher kept reminding me to focus on the process, to enjoy the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly but surely, I started to see progress.
That's a fantastic example. And it highlights something really important, the
Okay.
power of mindset.
Right.
When we approach learning with a positive attitude,
Yeah.
a willingness to experiment, and a belief in our own ability to grow,
Mm-hmm.
we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities.
It's like we're rewiring our brains for success, not just in language learning, but in everything we do.
I love
So for you listening, think about a skill or area of knowledge you've always wanted to explore.
Yeah.
It could be anything: coding, painting, public speaking, whatever sparks your interest. How can you apply these language learning principles to that goal? How can you break down those barriers, embrace the process, and celebrate your progress along the way?
Remember, learning is a lifelong journey,
Mhm.
and the skills we develop in one area can often enrich and enhance our abilities in others. It's all interconnected.
That's such a beautiful thought. And it brings us to a perfect ending point for this deep dive.
Indeed. We've explored some powerful strategies for speaking English confidently and uncovered some universal principles for learning and growth.
It's amazing how we started with a guide to speaking English and ended up talking about the very nature of learning itself.
That's the beauty of the deep dive, isn't it? You never know where these explorations will lead.
Exactly. It's all about making those connections, uncovering those hidden insights.
Yeah.
And remember, as you continue on your language learning journey, or any learning journey for that matter, don't be afraid to experiment. Try new approaches and find what works best for you.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to learning.
Right.
It's about discovering those methods that resonate with you,
Yeah.
that make the process enjoyable and sustainable. What might feel like a chore for one person could be a source of joy and excitement for another.
So true. And I think that's a great takeaway for anyone listening. As we wrap up our deep dive today, take a moment to reflect on what sparked your interest in improving your spoken English. What goals or aspirations are driving you? Keep those in mind as you practice and experiment with these tips.
Remember, every step you take, no matter how small it may seem, is a step towards greater fluency and confidence.
Ugh.
Embrace the journey, celebrate your progress, and never underestimate the power of consistent effort and a positive mindset.
And who knows, maybe the skills and insights you gain along the way will spill over into other areas of your life, helping you to become a more confident, capable, and well-rounded individual. That's all for our deep dive into speaking English confidently. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and a renewed sense of motivation to continue your language learning adventure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those conversations flowing. It's amazing how we started with a guide to speaking English and ended up talking about the very nature of learning itself.
That's the beauty of the deep dive, isn't it? You never know where these explorations will lead.
Exactly. It's all about making those connections, uncovering those hidden insights. And remember, as you continue on your language learning journey, or any learning journey for that matter,
Right.
don't be afraid to experiment, try new approaches, and find what works best for you.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to learning. It's about discovering those methods that resonate with you, that make the process enjoyable and sustainable. What might feel like a chore for one person could be a source of joy and excitement for another.
So true. And I think that's a great takeaway for anyone listening. As we wrap up our deep dive today,
Okay?
take a moment to reflect on what sparked your interest in improving your spoken English. What goals or aspirations are driving you? Keep those in mind as you practice and experiment with these tips.
Remember, every step you take, no matter how small it may seem, is a step towards greater fluency and confidence. Embrace the journey, celebrate your progress, and never underestimate the power of consistent effort and a positive mindset.
And who knows? Maybe the skills and insights you gain along the way will spill over into other areas of your life, helping you to become a more confident, capable, and well-rounded individual. That's all for our deep dive into speaking English confidently. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and a renewed sense of motivation to continue your language learning adventure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those conversations flowing.